All right, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? We have been taking a little bit of a break here on YouTube. I want to apologize for the frequency of videos going down. I have been taking some personal time to just kind of spend some time with family. I've had some weddings going on. I've had some things going on in my personal life, and I've been focusing a lot on building up my practice as a marriage and family therapist here in the Arizona area. And so I hope you guys can forgive a little bit of a break here on YouTube. We are going to be getting back into the pace of things and making more and more videos here. And so without any further ado, we're going to get into our Omicron ranking today. We're going to be ranking the top 10 Grand Arena Omicrons. Now, there is some difficulty in ranking Grand Arena Omicrons, especially because we have some that work better in 3v3, some that only work in 3v3. And so how do we gauge that? And I'm going to talk through kind of my thought process. This is not just my thought process. The Cubs fam kind of put our brains together and came up with this ranking for you today while I was streaming. So let's get right into it. Now, our number 10 is Boundless Force Throw from Starkiller. Now, Starkiller is obviously the hand over fist. The best Omicron the Starkiller has is There Is Much Conflict in You, which we'll talk about later. Spoiler alert, it is going to show up on this list. This one is also really good and very, very good in particular if you want to use your Starkiller to counter Ray. And so some people might make an argument for leaving this off the list even, because I think a lot of people do get away with only putting one Omicron on Starkiller. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but if you want to counter Ray, having that, let's see here, the extra Omicron adds the while unleashed, dispel all buffs or debuffs on all allies, and the buff immunity and healing immunity can't be copied, dispel, or resisted, which just helps tremendously against those Ray squads. And so something to look at. Now, I also want to make a quick call out. There is another Omicron here that a lot of you guys really, really like, and that is Tusken Raider's Omicron. We actually did decide to leave it off the list this time, almost exclusively for the fact that it's only used in 3v3. I do think that Tusken Raider would probably be showing up here on the right side of this list, somewhere between 6 and 10 if we were just ranking 3v3. It's just hard to justify these teams that get double the viability being kicked off this list, especially like Boundless Force Throw, for example, which is kind of where I was thinking about maybe leaving that off and putting Tusken Raider in. But that's going to provide so much viability in countering a GL without a GL versus half the time you're not going to be able to use this Omicron at all. And so if you guys want to envision this list as a 3v3 only list, you can just in your mind, in your head canon, just put Tusken Raider in up at like number 7 or 8, somewhere around there, because in 3v3, Tusken Raider's Omicron is pretty freaking OP. All right, Rebel Coordination is in at number 9. Now, one of the catches to Rebel Coordination, of course, is you're going to have a lot more use out of this if you do have that Omicron on Leia as well. And I kind of like the Omicrons to be as standalone as possible, but just calling that out. But the Rebel Coordination, the leadership ability here is absolutely what's going to bring that all together. It's going to give you that tenacity up for 2 turns at the beginning of the battle, assuming everyone's Rebel, which of course they're going to be. Whenever an ally's buff expires, you gain that 3% turn meter. There's going to be a lot of that, lots of turn meter gain. And when an ally uses an ability that isn't an attack, all allies recover 5% health instead, and instead a random ally, 2 other weakest allies are called to assist. You get more assisting, you get more turn meter gain. There's so much there, and this really makes those teams an actual viability on defense, especially back wall defense. I think is where it's going to be, or a pretty solid offensive choice. The reason it's showing up lower on the list though is I don't think this is a front wall team. I think this is going to be back wall, pretty much either way. All right, Sith Cruelty coming in next. Now, I know some people aren't fans of Talon. I personally am. I think that this Omicron adds a lot to that team, especially with Darth Revan. There's just a lot here. If an enemy is inflicted with Isolate or Pain, Talon's attacks gain additional effects. Whenever Darth Talon defeats an enemy, Sith allies gain 5% max protection and 5% offense for each stack of Loyal Hand on her. That can go pretty crazy. And for Isolate, if you are using her with Traya, Darth Talon's attacks lower the cooldown of Dark Frenzy by 1, gain 2 stacks of Loyal Hand, max 20. But the Pain is where I really, really like the use here. Dark Frenzy inflicts buff immunity on all enemies for 2 turns. Darth Talon's attacks recover all allies' health equal to 50% of damage dealt. doubled for Darth Scion. Gain 20 speed for the rest of the encounter, stacking max 200, and 1 stack of Loyal Hand max 20. I think this Omicron is very legit. There's just a lot going on there. All of that speed, the health recovery is going to be very, very useful. I'm not necessarily sold on it being a defensive Omicron, but especially on offense, it's going to have a lot of viability there. All right, number 7, Dash Rendar. I really like the persistence of prepared that comes with the Dash Rendar Omicron. It's probably the most simple Omicron on this list, but just all that prepared does to bring that scoundrel team together, and especially when you consider what's going to happen with Vander Chewy in the mix, I really like this Omicron. I think it's very solid, and I have had a lot of success. I actually keep forgetting that I have this Omicron on Dash. I shouldn't forget that. But I'll be in like the middle of a grind arena. I'm like, oh yeah, I can use Dash. I should probably put it my defense more because it is a good defensive Omicron. So, all right, moving right along. We have got Keen Eye number 6. Now, I want to give a massive disclaimer on First Order TIE Pilot. I do not believe this is the number 6th Omicron in the game. I think this is going to be top 5 for sure. I'm just not willing to put it there yet until we see this Omicron in action. Ultimately, you don't know what you don't know. We see text on a screen right now, and that text looks great. If you guys missed what First Order TIE Pilot is going to do, it is a ton. Let's see here. First Order TIE Pilot instead has 100% chance to gain foresight, and at the start of the encounter, all allies gain 50% max health. No big deal. Whenever an ally has advantage, which on First Order teams is like almost persistent, they have plus 50% critical damage and 100 speed. That is insane. At the start of the round, if an ally doesn't have advantage, they have plus 100% tenacity until they gain advantage. When an ally loses advantage, they recover 20% health and protection. And whenever First Order TIE Pilot gains a bonus turn meter, they gain advantage for 1 turn if they didn't already have it. Whenever First Order TIE Pilot gains foresight, all allies gain foresight. There's so much there. This, in my opinion, will very likely be top 4, top 3 Omicrons in the game. Just right now, we still need to see how it plays out, what the counters are going to look like, etc., before I get too excited and chuck him too high on the list. We did the same thing with Wampa. Last time we ranked this, Wampa's Omicron had just come out. We put Wampa at number 5. And, well, spoiler alert, Wampa is not at number 5 this time. We got Iden Versio in there at number 5. Now, I really like Iden's Omicron. I think, in my opinion, the most OP parts of her kit don't necessarily come from the Omicron, but it's still a really good Omicron to have. It's going to give you all of that max health gain, 35% max health and protection, and when you got those attacks out of turn, there's going to be the 20% health and protection recovery and 10% turn meter gain. And so it just adds that extra layer that makes those teams, those Iden Versio teams, very, very difficult to handle on defense. I don't know about you guys. I want to see all the comments in the chat. Who has gotten duped by an Iden Versio team, with or without the Omicron? I have failed both against both before because that unique ability can just be so OP. All right, here you go. Zam showing up at number 4. Now, Zam was, last time we ranked this list, we had Zam at number 2. And some people might have opinions about this. A big reason why we're docking her a little bit, though, is now that 3v3's back and kind of seeing what Zam does in 3v3, just not as effective in 3v3. Still good, but not as good as your boy Qui-Gon Jinn, for example, who still has all of that viability. I would say just as much viability with this Omicron in 3v3 as it does in 5v5 versus Zam. You get a little bit of a hit to that viability there. Still both very good Omicrons. All of the offense boosts that come from agility training, just insane. You got to put Anakin in the squad. He's coming at you fast. He's coming at you hot and heavy. And then Zam, of course, I mean, the amount of speed that those bounty hunters gain, all the other things that Omicron has going on just make bounty hunter teams that much more sweaty to go against. All right, and then here it is. Number 2, we're putting Wampa at number 2, my friends. Cornered Beast is just so good to have. And I'm not just putting this here at number 2 because of what the Omicron does itself. It's an amazing Omicron to have. It makes that 1v5 viability or 1v3 viability very, very stout. and there are so many teams you can take on. But anymore, I feel like this Omicron is becoming just a necessary commodity to have to be competitive in a lot of ways. If you don't have that option to use Wampa as a solo at some point, like your opponent does, they're going to gain that banner advantage on you through that Wampa solo. I think it's just being able to have those extra banners from that solo is very, very, very important. And this is, I haven't been able to give this Omicron out yet. I'm very, very disappointed about that. Please, everyone be sorry for me that I don't have this yet. I'm doing it as soon as I can. I'm really close to having 20 Omicrons. All right. And then finally, you guys predicted There Is Much Conflict is by far, in my opinion, by far the best Omicron in Grand Arena. There's just way too much this does. Way too much. Jedi ally tanks gain taunt. All allies have plus 35 speed. Debuffed enemies deal 50% less damage. You can keep your team a lot more survivable. Whenever a Sith ally uses a basic ability, Starkiller assists. And when you get your Starkiller high relics, I've got my Starkiller at relic 8. The amount of times he is assisting with his basic is just absolutely devastating. Absolutely devastating for the teams that I go against. It's so fun. And also been very, very good on defense. I'm sure that's a major part of it. Whenever a dark side unaligned force user uses a special ability, all allies gain crit hit immunity for 1 turn. And whenever Starkiller uses special ability, light side healer allies have their cooldowns reduced by 4. Jedi tank allies gain damage immunity and taunt for 1 turn. It's just, there's just way too much in that makes it difficult to do enough damage to this team. The team's going to come at you. It's going to do a lot more damage. It's going to lock you behind tanks so much more. You're going to have that damage immunity. This is the best Omicron in the game. Fight me. Fight me on it, Cubs fam. All right, there is your top 10 Omicrons in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes for Grand Arena. I am sure there will be debate. I am sure that TIE Pilot will be raising on this list once we see him in action. I am just being a little bit stubborn here by leaving him at number 6 because I just want to see it first before I'm willing to rank him much higher. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. Everyone, it feels great to be back making videos. And as always, my brothers, don't forget